Now that we have our plugin development finished, we can go through the process of submitting and then uploading our plugin to the WordPress.org repository. The first thing you'll want to do is zip your folder for the plugin and upload it to a site somewhere where you can paste in the link to give to WordPress to download. I'll assume that you know how to zip folders and upload them using FTP. Once you have that done, come over to the WordPress.org site and log into your account. If you haven't logged in yet, go ahead and register for an account. You'll need one in order to add a plugin to the WordPress repository. If we come down, we could see that it's asking for 3 pieces of information. The first is the plugin name, then the description, and finally the URL, which will link to the zip folder of your plugin that you uploaded to your own server. We're going to copy the code from our readme.txt file, pull in the title, our description, and then we'll paste in the URL to our plugin folder. Once that's done, you could go ahead and click Submit. I'm not going to click Submit here since I've already actually submitted this plugin. However, once you click Submit, you'll get a notice about how many plugins are in review and how many are waiting their initial review. This number fluctuates day to day and hour to hour. However, you could usually expect to hear back from WordPress within a day or so. The first time I submitted our plugin, I got a request denied. The reason is because we had the URL and the name plugin inside of the plugin. They said that this was a little redundant, so we had to resubmit the plugin without using those words. I went back and edited the source code a little bit to remove the reference to plugin. I'm not going to go through all of those little instances now, but if you do a find and replace in your main plugin files, you should be able to find that. You then go, click on the link, and resubmit your plugin. Eventually, you'll get something that looks like this. This is a notice that our WordPress plugin has been approved. They also give us an SVN repository to upload our files to. SVN is something that's similar to Git, and it's a way to upload our files, in our case in a very similar way that we use FTP software, and also check them out. The great thing about SVN and GitHub, though, is it tracks all of our changes with little comments, and at any point, if we need to go back to an old version or start a new one without losing another version, we could do that quite easily. It also tells us that the username and password are the same that we set up to log in to WordPress.org. Let's go ahead now and see what it looks like to commit our files to the WordPress repository. For this project, we'll be using the SVN client Versions. It only works with the Mac. However, if you're on a PC, you could use software called Tortoise.svn, which is a very popular SVN client for Windows. Versions is a paid software. However, if you're going to be working with a plugin, it's worth investing in some good software like Versions. If you're going to follow along with Tortoise SVN, it'll look a little bit different. However, the basic process is the same. Once you've downloaded Versions, go ahead and open it up. We're going to start by setting up a new repository bookmark. We'll name this something that denotes that this is dealing with our Badges plugin and the WordPress repository. Next, we'll get the URL from that email WordPress sent us and we'll paste it into the location. Our username and password are going to be the same that we have on WordPress. So we could set that up and go ahead and click Create. Once you're in, you'll see the following folders for Assets, Branches, Tags, and Trunk. Assets is going to be where all of our screenshots go that will show up on the WordPress.org plugins page. Trunk is where the latest version of our plugin gets stored. Inside of Tags is where we save old versions of our plugin. The first thing we're going to do is click on our repository and click Checkout. Somewhere on your computer that is not in the same place as your local sites folders, you're going to want to create an SVN root folder. I've created an SVN folder along with all of the different versions of download code and project files. Once you click on the name of the folder you want to store all your files in, go ahead and click Checkout. This is important to note that your SVN repository is stored in a completely different place than your local files. This is a little bit different than working with other version control systems. Now that we have everything checked out, let's go ahead and pull up this new SVN folder as well as the folder that's storing our plugin for local development. You could see here that we have our SVN folder with a folder for our actual plugin code, and we have the folder that we've been looking at this whole time with all of our badge information in it. Since these two folders live in different places, what we're going to have to do is copy our plugin files and paste them into Trunk. However, this Assets folder we created should really have its files located in this Assets folder in the root directory. So let's take our files from our Assets folder and move them over to the root Assets folder. We can then come back and delete our empty Assets folder. So at this point, we should have files in our Trunk as well as in our Assets folder. Now let's go ahead and come back into our SVN software and check to see that we have our files there. You could see that there are little notices that tell us that this file has not been added yet. We're going to go ahead and select all of these and click on Add. This sets them up in the queue so that we can commit them. We'll come into our Assets folder, do the same here, and then we could click on Commit to commit our changes. It'll ask us for a little note, and it's important that you keep good notes on what changes there are in case you ever need to go back. Let's enter a note that says that this is our initial commit of files. We'll see that everything is being committed. And then we'll notice that there's green check marks along all of our files. This tells us that everything has properly been submitted. Sometimes it could take a little bit of time for our submissions to show up on the WordPress plugin site. But once we give it a few minutes, we can come over and check to see that our file changes show up on the WordPress site. Sure enough, if we come to our plugin page, we could see that our title, description, and all of the different extra information that we set up is being properly displayed on our plugin page.